Hey, welcome to episode 176 of the Titanforge podcast. I'm Dratnos, joined by Tettles and Trell as always, and this week we have two very special guests, JPC and Sanghelios. Welcome.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Hello, thank you
Glad
for
to be
being here. So of course, JPC and Sanghelios, two of the players from victorious Team Liquid from this time's Race to World First. Sanghelios on the Firewing, legendary, first legendary crafter in the world as well, of the Nezuro, the thing that we've all been getting spammed with.
The Unbound Legacy.
So you're the reason that we get spammed, yeah?
Oh yeah, I started that. Yeah, it's the trend.
And then JPC on JPC Pogpilled.
And apparently that name has been quite contentious. I thought it was good when I came up with it, but I don't know.
Wait, are people mad about the name?
Well, they're not mad about it. They just don't get it. And then I try and explain. I'm like, you ever heard of people saying they're like red-pilled or blue-pilled and this kind of deal? Well, I'm pog-pilled. And then they're like, bro, what does that mean? I'm like, all right, just forget about it.
It's a bad name.
All right, well, so yeah, this episode we're going to talk just all about the Race to World First and you guys and the win and everything. But first, what have you guys been up to since the Race to World First over? Obviously, saying you got that cool legendary creation process to do. How did that?
Yeah,
for you?
well, just it's a work in progress. You gotta, immediately after the race, you gotta start working on getting them on all your guys. That weapon is definitely gonna be relevant for a bit. Sure, it won't get easily replaced. Maybe it might. Never know. So gotta keep getting them.
And then JPC, how about you? You've been doing some keys.
I've been kind of taking it easy. Yeah, I've jumped into a few keys. I did some keys yesterday, which was really fun. I hadn't done keys really in a while. I've got a long-term goal on my RuneScape account to get the Grandmaster helmet on my Iron Man. So I've been working on that a little bit. It's coming along.
Gamer.
But yeah, the keys were really fun, and we've just been kind of laying low, doing a lot of heroics for the buckets and whatnot.
I saw Sang is like doing viewer heroics every day for his 12 lizards, trying to get more of the weapons.
Yeah, it's actually been like a fun way to go about doing it rather than like just I don't know. I've had a lot of people. It's pretty easy actually. Right on the reset, just pop a group in the group finder. You get like 25 evokers signing up, all trying to get their chance, and boom, you got a group.
You excited for LFR to open up and start slamming that on every evoker every week?
That'll be on the weekly list.
Yeah.
Would you ever play Augmentation if it's good?
Would I ever play? Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure I'd probably play around with it.
Have you gotten a second legendary yet?
Oh yeah, I got one other like RNG one. I would say. Yep, 2 total.
Nice.
10 to go.
Every time someone gets in our guilds, it's always the most rat character, no matter what. It's like the freshest level 70 character gets the legendary.
Yeah, I mean, you got the sometimes they pop out of nowhere. You got just some random evoker, some random alt evokers. Someone never plays the class, but they get the legendary, and then they're like, oh, and then they ask like, oh, it costs like this much to make, and you have to do all this stuff, and they're like, wait a minute.
So, how much does it cost?
Well, I don't know now. I know obviously the first time I did it was very like 500k or 600k in mats. I think it's a lot cheaper now. It's probably like still a couple 100k though.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. So definitely not free. I think once LFR comes out, there are going to be characters that don't complete it because it's too expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they also you have to like go around farming like the Farrak assaults, and then you have to do like dig some dirt in the caverns. You gotta there's some regions you have to get that way. So it's some extra content.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It was really cool though, the way that they like released it on the first kill of the boss. The guaranteed drop. I think that was one of the coolest things they've ever done.
Oh yeah, I think the whole thing was very much a surprise to me. It's been like a long time since I think they've had anything close. And obviously, I wouldn't say it's not like quite on the level of like previous legendaries like Dragon Wrath, where you have like a multi-week long quest line that involves collecting materials, and then obviously like every step you complete has like a large story part to it. This one was like, you could get the legendary and then like within the same week, well, like you can get the drop and then in the same week you could complete it. But there was still like, a lot of fun parts to it that kind of came out of nowhere. It's like a much more involved way than it just being, oh, it dropped from the boss, like the Sylvanas bow. There it is, just boom, nothing to it, just there it is. But this is like still really rare, but you have to do some stuff to it, and you get a really high admirable weapon, regardless of what difficulty you get it on, which is pretty interesting as well.
They need to make some daggers for JPC, I think.
I know, dude. It's like they gave us Sylvanas daggers and then they just ripped them away. Like I'm fiending for a dagger injection next raid. Oh, we'll see though.
Also a bow. It's been so long since a good bow's been there. It's been 1 tier now. Need it back.
Yeah, so long. I'm sure those will make another appearance. I don't want to get too off topic, but have you guys seen Augmentation Evoker on PTR?
No, not yet.
Dude,
I've seen it buffing some people.
That spec is going to cause so many issues in almost like 99% of guilds. Like, if people already fight over PI and stuff, that spec is like 10 PIs on steroids. And like, it's oh man. Like, I think PI adds, 15, 20k DPS. These guys add like 50, 60k DPS or something. And it's going to be like, when you go to Warcraft logs, the rank 1 parse is going to say like 84 external buffs on the thing.
So I have a question. Like, Blizzard stated though that they were going to have Augmentation Evoker have some better documentation for like how to correctly attribute damage, and then Warcraft logs also stated at a separate point that if Blizzard didn't, they would.
Yeah,
is that the case?
Some of it's like giving 4,000 verse to somebody or something. Like you can't factor that out easily. I mean, I guess you could try.
Well, I think you can, right?
It's like you could try and do the math with the haste on PI and stuff, but some of it's just not possible to attribute to them.
I guess.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number. Well, I know on PTR, like, details isn't working like that. Like, it just increases the player that you're simping for, their numbers. I mean, don't quote me on it because I don't know anything about the spec really, but I think Mavie was saying with, like, current gear, he was doing, like, if you factored in how much damage he was giving to other players, he was doing, like, 210k single target or something.
Oh,
like,
God.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Like, that's going to be huge in Mythic Plus, because it's going to be so problematic, like you said, too, because you basically have 2 DPS the entire key, right? And they're just doing, like, super overpowered threat, incredible burst, but then maybe, like, nothing outside their CDs.
Well, apparently it's also like 40% stronger when you're in a party versus in a raid. Yeah,
which makes sense because you're affecting 4 people, right? And if half of them are tanks and healers, like they are an M+, you need to buff the size of the effect for it to be good. What were you gonna say, Sang? Sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say it's like definitely it is a very strange class for sure, and it's like something that like there's like. How hard is it? I think it's gonna be like impossible for them to completely nail it. It's either gonna be something, completely broken or really bad. I don't think there's gonna be like, oh, it's like a decent, valuable bonus over a whole nother DPS. And,
I mean, my general read is like, how the hell is it supposed to be balanced in both raids and Mythic Plus?
Well, the 40%
I think
M
between the two
is the way, right?
Yeah, I think between the two, it's definitely I don't know. I feel like it'll be really hard to be good in Mythic Plus, I think. Like in a raid, it'll be probably definitely like, you can always fit 1 for sure. Like you'll probably almost always have 1 if it's anywhere decent. But in Mythic Plus, I mean, it is taking up an entire DPS slot. And I don't know. Maybe like there's some comps that would be good with. But like maybe if it's like cooldown reliant classes too, like you're just kind of, you're just like having 1 big like bonus and then like you're just down a DPS for a little bit.
I bet it would have been good in the no healer Court of Stars last season.
Holy shit.
Yeah, my guess is that if they balance it to be like good in average players' hands, it's going to be sick in top players and top guilds' hands. So I think it's going to be like really, really good in Race to World First and super high keys. But
I mean, Evoker utility is pretty good. Like, all things considered, if you think about things like Zephyr, very strong. Time Spiral has situational use. Like their 5-man utility is normally pretty good with Wing Buffet and Tail Swipe too.
All right,
even Rescue too. Rescue's pretty broken in Like people were rescuing people on top of the totem poles in Knockhood, like
Rescue
just random
shield.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Overall as well, the like AoE soothe for raging, that thing is really nice. Yeah, a lot of good stuff in the kit. Okay, let's move on to talking about a little bit about the race world first. And JPC, I want to start with you because you only joined. What was the first tier you rated with Liquid? Was it
My first tier was Sepulcher, the Jailer tier. Yeah.
So Sepulcher, Vault, and Sepulcher was off of Sanctum as well, which had been a losing streak for all up until now for you. How big was was that in the mental, and how I mean, obviously it was really sick to win, but how much did this one need to be a win for you guys?
Oh, it felt so good. Like I guess I don't necessarily even know what I was expecting it to feel like. But when we did finally win, it was just this like kind of like flood of emotion in a weird way. Like I didn't cry or anything, but like I was like, holy shit, like we did it, like we won, and it was a big relief because, at some point, I mean, I never really questioned, like, I don't know how to put it. At some point you question like, okay, are we good enough to beat them? Like we keep losing, they keep kind of at the same time, when you're in the race, you always think you can win. Even in Sepulcher, all the way almost until the very last day, I'm like, all right, we can do it. We can win. But and in this tier, we just played so good. I'm like, holy shit, like this is so good. Like I feel like, yeah, the guild just played great, and we put especially on the last boss, and yeah, it was a good feeling.
Yeah, you guys really didn't lose momentum this tier, huh? There wasn't like a moment where you fell too far behind or anything. You kind of just stayed ahead the entire time, right?
Yeah, I think we changed our approach to how we were gonna, like in the past, we kind of had this policy where we wouldn't watch Echo streams. We wouldn't watch their strats. We wouldn't watch them just because inevitably at some point in the race, the other guild is going to pass you. And at that point, I think because there was this policy around like not watching them or not factoring them into the race at all, it would be kind of tilting for like a lot of players when that would finally occur. But this time we approached it with the mentality like, okay, like we're even going to let them pass us sometimes. And then we're just going to yoink everything that they do and make it way better. Because basically, like when we can see what they've come up with, and then we can either decide, okay, that's good or that's not so good. It's like you're getting like 60 people to iterate on a strategy versus just your own guild. And so when they did pass us technically, the whole guild was like in good spirits. We're like, all right, yeah, like now it's time the game, and I don't think that was the same way it was in previous tiers.
Yeah, I could tell that was a little bit different. You're right. Like as viewers, I always kind of noticed the moment when they caught up at the morale that we could see from you guys was a little bit lower. I don't know if we really saw the full scope of it or what, but this year it really didn't seem like that was the case. That was pretty cool.
All right, Sang, how about you?
Okay. Oh, I was gonna say it's also never like, it's not this like voiced thing like, oh, they've just passed us, but it's just more of like this casual like, there starts to be less jokes that are told and stuff, like the general mood, I guess, will go down when that happens. But yeah, it didn't happen this time, so it was great.
I think for me, obviously having been in the guild since the ending of Uldir, so basically Eternal Palace and onward, and we've won Nyalotha, Castle Nathria, so I've been a part of both of those, and then this time it feels really good. And honestly, like having won the third time, it almost feels just as exciting as the first and second time. Like looking back on it, it's it's not like no diminished value in it, honestly. And this time it feels like it just felt much better to have won, knowing that like nothing really just like nothing cringe with like them having the two bosses like so randomly. Like this is like, I mean, they literally didn't touch anything. It was like all killable within the first week, and it's like you when we get to like we get to a boss and we're in the raid first, and then there's something that's just like undoable, and then we're just wasting time on a wall, and then it gets nerfed. It's just terrible, especially then because then Echo catches up. They get to the same boss and they kill it in a fraction of the pulls because they just get to the nerf version and they have a full strategy. Like we just showed them how to kill a boss. So like it's just basically like another farm boss. And it's I mean, I feel like that it just obviously there's like no avoiding like stuff like that potentially happening, but I do feel like we're completely unstoppable if that doesn't happen. There's just like obviously like again the head start could like be a factor in that, but in like it's just like much more of a satisfying like thing when just nothing like that has to happen, and then you can't really make excuses to oh well, if this wasn't like this.
Dude,
So
the need for a 50% nerf last year was insane.
Oh,
And I wasn't
so
even in the
bad.
race. Like I wasn't commentating. I was viewing. I was like, are you kidding me?
yeah, and I think our approach this time for sure about like the streams thing is there's definitely less of an emphasis on like, oh, don't pay attention to like what they're doing. And it was like obviously like it's good to like be in the mindset of you play your own game. You don't really let what they're doing or the fact that maybe they're ahead in percentage points, and you play your own game, but you definitely like take information as much as you can. And I think like the not banning of the watching other streams is like we had like like resources made so that way you could see a POV of your class from like Echo, and you can just kind of learn from that, and that definitely helped like some people like optimize what they might be doing.
Yeah,
dude, I thought this tier was kind of weird coming into it. It felt like the community sentiment was that Echo was just going to win again, and it wasn't even going to be close. But it was like almost like disrespectful in a way. It was so strange to see some of the community sentiment be that way.
I mean, yeah, to me, I paid absolutely no attention to like what other people thought or any of that. Definitely was playing my own game, but it is satisfying to know that they're proven wrong.
I mean, it's awesome to see you guys win, but I do think on that point, it's just like fan behavior, right? Like you build fans when you win multiple times in a row, of course, and then especially if you do that multiple times in a row, it's kind of expected and like the odds that you're going to win. But like obviously, you two, both guilds have won many times, and it's always kind of close. I don't think it's ever truly like, oh, they're obviously going to win.
Yeah. A lot of times too, like the fans of the race, they don't know WoW like super in depth. So if even though we did lose the last 2 tiers, like my first 2 tiers in the guild, if you look at the jailer tier, it didn't end well, but like we played well, like on Alondris, Anduin, and it was a good race for the vast majority. And then even last tier, we played pretty well. I will say they probably played a bit better on Razageth, but like the entire rest of the raid, I felt like we were doing great. And yeah, a lot of the times I think the difference between our 2 guilds get blown out of proportion. I mean, we did win this race, I would say by like a good margin, but like they're just as capable of doing that. It's kind of a. I mean,
so it makes it fun. So it makes the race fun. Like, honestly, if it was just a 1-horse race, nobody would even be interested in watching it. And dude, also Method looked pretty good this tier. I think I don't know if there's a possibility for like a 3-horse race almost immediately, but this is the closest it's been in a very long time.
Yeah, they're the 3 guilds that killed it in the first reset, right? All of them got in reset 1, and then we have a bunch of reset 2 guilds. And then reset 3 guilds, right? That's kind of how it all shook out, right? Definitely a JPC disconnecting us into the cameras. Oh, all right.
We good? Did you guys have BC too?
Okay, looks like just Discord.
Wait, was it a Discord issue?
Well, you guys can see the behind the scenes here.
Can you hear?
Oh wait,
yeah.
Yep, I think just
test.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay.
We're just updating names.
Discord.
Is
yeah,
it
the names will fix
Discord?
in a sec. All right, there we go.
all right.
Oh
Hey,
no.
All right,
We're back.
Discord does
Oh,
once per couple weeks. Discord has some hiccups, and unfortunately, it looks like it's lined up with our podcast, but hopefully not too bad. By the way, do you guys use Discord for Prague? I know that Echo only uses TeamSpeak because Discord's like not super reliable. Are you guys TeamSpeak believers or
we
Ventrilo enjoyers?
we use TeamSpeak most of
Yeah.
the time, and then Discord for like some of its features. Like most of the time, we're always like communicating in TeamSpeak, but like we use Discord for like the video and just obviously the channels too for information and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
You guys pull helpers in for strats or whatever on
Oh
bosses
yeah,
you need
yeah.
them?
We also we also it's easier to get helpers into Discord, I think, than TeamSpeak. So we definitely use Discord for like the splits.
Okay, speaking of splits and prep and stuff, this patch obviously featured like an entirely new gearing system than it ever did before. Saying you're often in charge of like looking on PTR and setting up stuff. Obviously, everybody does some, but historically you've done a lot of the like rep grinds and like campaign quest type stuff. How much of the new gearing system, theory were you involved with, or how did that all go for the guild?
Yeah, it definitely was a large part of just kind of making like how the systems work. I am like a huge part in letting people like try both the entire guild but also like the analysts and officers, like making sure like, hey, this is how the system works. This is like all the potential things that could come out of it. And obviously do take part in like kind of like when they strategize like around trying to work with it. Yeah, I'm just there to see like, or just make sure all the information is correct, because I do like, I spend a lot of time figuring it out, how it all works. I do write a little nice document on all the stuff, and then that I do eventually share with all of the raiders too, so that way they kind of maybe can get an understanding about it too. And I kind of just do a lot of that stuff. That's
So are you the one responsible for the flight stonefish?
Yes, that is. So yeah, that was quite funny. Yes, indeed. I actually brought it up way earlier too in like all of our like my early meeting with that. Like, hey, you can get flight stones from these Paragon boxes, and you can kind of like grind these Paragon boxes like right now. And like thinking about it, like think about the alternative of, all right, so like flight stones, like how do you get them? Well, the thing is, like, all the sources prior to the raid are really not great. You're gonna be digging dirt, doing quests, and getting 2,000, but like that's like a lot of content. You got that 1 week. But then like, oh, you get these Paragon boxes and you get them now. And I know like no one in the guild has reputation. So like there's like efficient ways to get Paragon boxes. Like, the idea is like to do, so I don't know if anyone knows how it works, but when you're hit max renown with a rep, when you get a lot of when you do a lot of content that gives rep with that faction when you're already exalted, it's like bind on account. So you can like save up all these rep tokens, and like, so the grand hunts, the Maruk Centaur, right? Every time you like do them, you get 4, like if you were max renown, you get 4 BOA tokens, and you can multi-box it, get multiple characters, like, and you have infinite like trophies, and then like you would know what your main guy is. The idea was to like grind as many of this bind on account rep, find out what your main guy is after all the splits, and then if you ever needed flight stones, you just sent all that rep to that guy, got a bunch of Paragon boxes, open it, boom. You never had a problem with flight stones. But obviously that like involved a lot of work at the time that I was able to convince people that it was probably a thing. And then the fish thing was like the other thing that that's like the one reputation. It's the only reputation you can really just buy off the auction house entirely. So you got all these people that renowned 5, whatever, just had to buy hundreds of thousands of fish just to get the renown up to 30. And then obviously after that point, it's 3 renown per Paragon box. And so that's like 300k fish per Paragon box. But it was entirely AFK. You just sat there at a vendor and just turning in fish, getting that rep, and just farming these boxes. And yeah, I mean, it was a real
This is so
a real
cursed.
thing because trying to like tell people how many flight stones you need, it's like very variable, and there's like a lot of people that didn't end up using any of those, or very little, and some that could have probably ended up using a lot more, but you never really know, and you just never want to be caught unprepared. So
Yeah.
yeah, obviously we did not do a very. It was funny that the meeting that we had, where it was like, okay, guys, we're doing fish, but it was like top secret, right? But we really did a bad job of keeping it a secret.
It is a terrible job.
When suddenly, literally during the meeting, like 5-6 people just start buying out the fish, going to the vendor, and then suddenly you see 10 liquid players around this one guy in Waking Shores, and you're like, what's going on here? And obviously
Instantly
you
a
got
screenshot on Twitter.
yeah, you got people being curious, and then sure enough, eventually people find out what's going on.
Yeah, then everybody's like, "What are they getting out of this?" And it turns out it's like not something that matters unless you have 12
like,
mirrors or something.
Fucking nothing.
Yeah, we had some casuals just start buying fish because these guys are doing having to do it. They have no clue what it was for, but stock up now.
The thing was too is this was only going to be useful if you were like one of the few raiders that didn't have to leave the raid for much M+. Like if your M+ was going to be the bare minimum and you got bad RNG in terms of the amount of heroic gear that you got, so most of your gear was from normal, that was the case when the fish would have come in. And we still did fish on all 8 characters on every raider. And yeah, you had people just... So I think the fish price went from like 20 silver to like almost 2 gold. I think I bought like 3.5 million fish, which was a nice flip in the end.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, some people bought like 5 million fish. Yeah.
Wow.
Some people
it took like an hour just to like get it in your bags and like distribute it out to your characters.
Yeah, some people are making bank back though, because the fish prices have officially just gone up and are just not going back down. And now they're selling all the extra fish and just making that gold back.
Okay. I want to ask about the strats and the prep and stuff, because after Sanctum, there was a lot of like, oh, if we'd really understood how this race was going to look and like how Shards of Domination worked, right, we would have done a completely different gearing strat in the first week, right? And like basically guaranteed that everybody had a fully sharded up main character by having mirrors and doing those runs, right? Was there anything like that this time around where looking back, you're like, okay, if we actually really knew exactly what this race was going to look like, we would have done something different? Or would it have just been like, oh, if we knew for sure it was 1 week, we would have done stuff different? But
so this time I think it was a hard emphasis on getting as much gear as possible. Like absolutely nothing was like, oh, we should cut some stuff from splits just to get into the raid sooner. The idea was to get as much gear as possible from splits and basically leave no stone unturned for being like as efficient with all that gear available. So we were like fully committed to doing like it started out like, oh, we would just do heroic and maybe a couple normal bosses, to like suddenly like the amount of heroic splits we were doing just kept going up, and then suddenly we added every normal and the same amount of splits, and it was just like full get as much gear as possible, do not cut down on anything. And I think that's like one of the biggest changes for sure, because we did so many like heroic, like a lot more heroic splits too this time around. I think like last time in Vault it was like more getting like normal tier, like and then like getting some heroic gear, but the amount of heroic gear, like I was a victim of being again literally one of the only people in Vault to not have a 4 set. And
I remember JPC and Sepulcher as well.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And this time obviously the tier was like really free, but we took it to the extra level of like, okay, just getting 4 set was not enough. It literally has to be heroic 4-piece. Like just that item level is like so important, just having as high of item level, So normal was mostly to get the very rare stuff, right? Like the Neltharion trinkets, the Sarkarith trinket, the beacon, the cloak, like all those like very specific items that characters would need to like be really good. That was like mostly normal because the upgrade system, you could actually make it to a very relevant item level. So it was good to target normal for that. We still did it the full entirety of normal anyways, even if like maybe some bosses literally just there's nothing there. We just did it anyways. Get that gear. And then heroic, again, with the way the tier works, basically just optimizing, getting heroic 4-set for everyone, doing as many heroic Sarkariths, filling in characters that like maybe you had a character that you're going to play, you know, only 2 Zenith tokens dropped. Okay, here we'll give you this Sarkarith kill heroic is literally just for that person to get 2 more heroic tier pieces. And so it was just a lot of effort on being as high on level as possible from just the heroics and normals. And then only then after that would we go into mythic.
I think you can really see the difference in like how much the guilds have changed their philosophy on splits. Like if you look back at Sanctum, I think, well, it was Limit then. I didn't raid in the guild, but I think they had 9 unholy gem sets, and Echo might have had like 11 or something. If that were today, all 20 people would easily have their gem sets. You also would probably have like 2 hunters with the legendary bow already. You'd have like every rogue would already had Sylvanas daggers on their guy with the unholy shard set.
Yeah.
Like it is just miles different. Like even when I joined the guild in Sepulchre, I had 4 rogues, and the 4th one was a fake. Now I have 8 rogues, just like a year and a half later, 2 years later. So it's gotten pretty crazy. But some people even have like 10 characters, you know.
Did you guys enjoy the gear upgrade system from this patch?
I personally think it's, I mean, I like it a lot just personally, but it's like I've heard a lot of things. Like I say that when a system is good, generally it gets abused more. And sometimes it's like worse for us because then we have to do more degen stuff. But like it's such a healthy thing, I think, for the game to making more gear like feel appealing to like people. But obviously for us, it means, oh, now we're doing normal like over and over again, and then we're doing like this is like our current farm. We do a lot of heroic raids still because it's like actually like good stuff from there still. Like before, we probably like never did heroic past the first week, like for farm period. And now we're doing like actually doing like 8+ full heroic runs still on characters, just because again the upgrade system, you know, you get efficient crest from there, and then you can upgrade all that gear to 441. And I mean that's a really good item level. It's early mythic item level, so you just get more powerful characters early on. And overall, it's a good system. It requires a lot more work from us because we have to do all this stuff, but that's just my personal opinion. I like the system. I'm sure others hate it because it involves them having to do other stuff.
I'm a big fan. Yeah, I think it's like especially good for casual players, and the gap isn't quite as big between people that mythic raid and don't, and like how quickly you can gear up. Like I'm pretty sure I could go on an alt and play like 2 hours a day, an hour a day, like even if you didn't have like an hour a day, and you could be higher item level than we killed mythic Sarkareth in like a week or 2, which is like, I think that's generally good for like more gear accessibility. You do kind of run into the thing where you're like, well, now what, right? There's like 6 months left, but I don't actually think that's that big of an issue, especially because a big part of the player base like is the casual player base, and they have a lot easier time getting gear and doing good content. So I think it's generally pretty good. And also it makes your normal raid items not feel so useless.
Right.
Yeah.
I also think it's just like such a nice season for people to play at least 2 characters or have the desire to, and maybe haven't had the time to in the past. Like you could play 4 characters this season for the same time investment that you'd play like 2 characters in previous seasons. Feels really fun.
Yeah, I think the ability to gear up a character and not have to do like really hard content is definitely kind of a nice introduction, a way to like, you know, maybe, oh, I want to play a new class I've ever played. You know, you can do normal raids and actually feel like you get useful gear and actually get quite powerful from just doing that. But yeah, I think it's just a really good system, I think.
Goodbye, JPC.
Here's we've lost JPC
Goodbye.
again. Well, the 4-person frame I haven't got set up already, so we'll soldier on. Oh, there you go. Okay, names are wrong. Not a problem. Let's move on to talking about the early mythic bosses. So splits are done. We start blasting through the mythic bosses: Kazara, Amalgamation Chamber, Zakali Assault, all kind of falling pretty quickly. Do you guys have any thoughts about the first few bosses? You don't have to. It's okay to not have thoughts about these ones.
I mean, I don't know. It's hard to like get a good opinion. I'm like comparing the earlier, like other early mythic bosses. I mean, it felt. I like all the bosses in this raid. I like most of the bosses. I like all of them, but
most of them.
They definitely. I don't know. They just seem really cool. Obviously, I think the early mythic bosses for loot, as most people probably find, is not that exciting because again, you can upgrade the heroic gear to literally the same item level. But
yeah,
I think Assault of the Zakali is like, it's just like heroic, just more health and damage, and then Kazara, I mean, again, more interesting. I think it's like a very interesting first boss. Actually, quite more challenging, I'd say, than Aranog, but still appropriate, I think. And that could be like, again, you're maybe going into the first boss with more item level. So, like, I mean, even with good gear, I'd say that boss definitely is a good intro to the raid. And then, as speaking of early mythic bosses, actually, going back on the thought about how we really didn't want to rush going into the raid. So it's actually quite funny that I think our strategy for Forgotten Experiments and Amalgamation Chamber, our initial strategy for that we had from testing, completely changed when we actually got to those bosses based on just what other guilds did, just because we obviously there was kills on all those bosses already, or I think there was a kill on, I don't know if there was already a kill on Forgotten Experiments, but
FSY World First Forgotten Experiments. Yeah.
yeah. So we definitely like looked at that and like, oh, this is just kind of clean to do it this way, and so we just so like the whole like Amalgamation Chamber, we had a strat where like everyone had a partner to cross the middle with, and we just like have a whole raid, and then you swap the elementals, and then just kind of clear with someone on your side. It was completely different strategies, but it was kind of fun that way.
I mean, I think it felt like the difficulty of the first few bosses was pretty consistent with the difficulty of like early bosses in most raid tiers.
Yeah, I'd say. I have to think afterwards it's definitely jumped up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess Rashok was the first actually I guess Forgotten Experiments was kind of close, but Rashok things start ratcheting up a little bit in difficulty. That one ends up having a little bit of progression, a couple hours worth in it. How do you guys feel about that encounter?
I think Rashok, go ahead, James.
Well, I was gonna say I loved Rashok. I thought Rashok was a great boss. Like you compare it to other, like what was the fifth boss from last raid, Senarth? I thought this boss was like a million times better than Senarth, and it is kind of one of those bosses where once you get better gear, the level of execution doesn't need to be quite as high, because even if some people die, like you can meet the DPS check and you'll kill the boss. But I think we were 431 or 432 maybe when we pulled it, and yeah, I just absolutely loved that boss. That was a fun. I don't know if it was as fun for casters. Probably Sang had a good time on Evoker because they have hover, but for melee players, like I thought Rashok was really fun.
I think Rashok as the Evoker definitely was a very fun. Was a very I think it's definitely my favorite boss, just because it kind of was again a surprise. I was like concerned after you kind of like see a boss and see the tuning and you think about the bosses afterwards, and like I think you had like this issue in like the previous raid where like if the fifth boss of like a 9 boss raid is like whoa, then like okay, maybe hopefully there's nothing overtuned coming up, because most likely it probably is. I got that feel from like Rashok, because it's like you got the bosses before were all like pretty extremely easy, and this one's like all right, we're like pretty optimized gearing, and like you just hit that enraged if even like one person's just dead for like the last bit, and on top of that it's like bullet hell plus insane amount of raid damage, and it was just a very fun fight from my point of view to nail down all my personal usage, but also try to maximize damage and movement, and obviously being able to press hover and weave around all the lava waves every time was just enjoyable. It was just a fun little. It was just a fun fight. I don't know what to say. It was just that, and it was really tight and challenging. And yeah.
Yeah. I think Rashok, at least for my guild, was the only encounter where I didn't know we were going to kill it like 30 seconds before it died. Like Sarkareth, Echo of Neltharion, and Siskarn and Magmarax all... I guess Magmarax also on our kill was kind of close, but on all those it was like, I looked at the boss's health, I looked at the timer, and I was like, oh, this thing is dead 10 seconds before Enrage or something like that. But then Rashok, for me as well, it just came down to the wire, and we had these like close wipes, these sub 2 or 3% wipes before we actually killed it, and that was much better.
Yeah, I think what was always fun about Rashok too was the 2-minute classes. Like you basically you get like one set of 2 minutes, like the last like 30-20 seconds of the boss before killed you, and you were taking so much damage. You had a Searing Slam go off, Healing Absorb, and you just like, oh, if I stay alive for this bit and then pop my cooldown, and if everyone can do that, the boss dies. It was like kind of like that feel, but like it felt really bad. You just couldn't, if you didn't live that part, and then you're like, oh, you just see that low percent wipe, and like, it kind of.
Yeah, that's how like end bosses usually feel. Is that moment in the last part of the fight where like if you live through your CDs, you'll barely kill this boss. Like that kind of fight design is always awesome for me at least. And I kind of wish they would have put that boss where Magmarax was.
Yeah, 100%. I think the raid would have been not quite flawless, but it would have been like an insane raid if those two just switched places, and then Rashok was a bit harder, or like maybe slightly tighter tuned or something.
I will say though, again, like you kind of have to go back and be like, at least they didn't have to go through and nerf anything. Like it's one of those things that
absolutely
they didn't overtune anything. But I mean, as a consequence, it was you have a Magmarax.
What do you mean? They had to nerf Siskarn by 25% last week.
All right, let's
Tuttles.
Dude,
we don't talk about that boss.
I mean, we can. I actually think that talking about that boss is like super interesting because of the texture of the race. Because you guys killed Siskarn first, and that was one of the most hyped kills I've seen of a boss in a while. And then Guilds just proceeded to take that thing and stick it in the wall.
Yeah, Skarn was definitely a very interesting thing on specifically on the pole we killed it, where I'm pretty sure like we got the boss to like a spot we've never seen before, and we were just like the last 20% of that boss we were YOLO. It was full never seen kind of YOLOing, like what makes sense in the moment. We were doing that, and then the whole room is just filled up like at 15%, and we're just against the wall. And we're like, okay, well, I mean, this is working. What we're doing is working right now. Just get the embers out. and it died. The boss actually like died, and it was like crazy. And then like obviously like we had like wipe. If that pull was a wipe, like if we had wiped, we probably would have sat down and be like, okay, hold on, can we just like kill this from like way earlier, just doing this? But we ended up killing that pull.
Yeah. So it was like literally the last pull that you kind of figured that out.
Yeah, because again, we were like kind of YOLOing that whole bit, but obviously, if it had been a wipe, we probably would have like, you may have seen us like probably pull it there maybe sooner and definitely do the kind of the same thing. And obviously, other guilds saw that. I think Echo saw that and realized like, oh hey, yeah, like I think we like pulled it in like it was like 12-15% ish around there, but then other guilds started doing like 25%, and then obviously you got the guilds 100% in the corner.
Eight pulls, 100% of the boss is done to the wall.
Yeah,
14-minute Skarn kill.
14-minute.
That's a good strat.
6 tanks, 8 healers.
Yeah. So obviously, I think a big problem for like re-kills or for later kills, and the fact they had to nerf it all. But for World First, I mean, discovering that on the World First kill and like having it be a YOLO and reaction and people playing, I think that boss was a lot better for World First than it was for like World 20th through 50th. I think that's
definitely.
I agree with that.
I think most people I hear talk about that boss say they hate it, or it's one of the worst bosses of all time. Whereas like my point of view is like, oh, that was a great boss. I love playing that boss. So sometimes that can happen, I guess.
let's talk about the dog afterwards. Magmarax.
Oh, dude.
So this
Magmarax.
encounter, you can see on the progress time by guild here, did not live very long for almost anybody. Very quick kill times. 18 pulls for Liquid, and this was like 18 pulls with like figuring it out and changing strats and like doing all the adjustments. And then
it's actually quite surprising too that it's like, I mean, the amount of pulls we have like maybe makes some sense, but I feel like Echo took a lot of pulls too, and like it's such a like simple boss. You just question like, how do you not one shot this boss? Because it's like, I mean, it actually had a tight DPS check. Like it was actually like,
did that say 45?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like every single guild that pulls this boss, except for Project, takes a like double-digit pulls and then kicks themselves over it, and is like, why?
I have a theory about this. This is the first time I've ever felt this way when raiding on a boss in Race World First. I think this boss is so boring and so mechanically easy. You get like lulled to sleep, and you have this false sense of confidence where you think like nothing matters. Who cares how the like, and then all of a sudden you just die, and it's just like, because also when we did this boss, this was after the night where the morning construction that we had just outside of our hotel was by far the worst. I think I probably only slept like 4 hours, 5 hours the night before we got to Magmarax, and it's actually unreal. Like you think you just go in and one shot it, but you're just sitting there and you're just bored, and
dude,
all of a sudden you die.
I love how you guys did 4 pulls, and then we're in comms like, okay, so we're gonna take a break. We figured out like you start the pulls and you go, all right, we're gonna pull this a couple times and see if it's killable. You do 4 pulls and then you take a break and go do Mythic Plus, and then you come back and you just like almost insta kill it. It's just like, all right, this dies right now.
Weird fight.
Yeah, I think Magmarax, we like just tried like, how much like can we just sit here the entire time? It was like already guaranteed like, okay, this is not how you like legitimately are going like would kill this boss, but like you gotta try it and like see if you can kill it this way, if it's that easy to just literally sit
that would
here
be funny. That would be
and
so
just
funny.
not do any thinking about mechanics and just do that. You try that, even if it's like more HPS, like significantly more HPS. But like if you can do that, turn brain off, kill Patchwork boss. Obviously, it was a little too hard to just sit there 100% of the time. So you obviously then we kind of strategize. Okay, when's the best time to start, moving the boss around the room? And took a few pulls even after figuring that out to like exactly kind of when the most ideal time to kill it and meet the DPS check. But I mean, it was one of those fights that for sure probably was like should have just died like in less than 10 pulls.
All right, then we moved on to Echo of Neltharion, which this was the part in the race where Echo overtook you guys for the first time, I think, during the like, the kind of leapfrog of you go to sleep ahead and wake up behind type thing, which obviously is a short race, so it didn't happen very often. So how did you guys feel about this fight? And I think we should also talk about the private auras thing, because
holy shit,
you guys ended up breaking it kind of wide open in P3 with the map thing. But now guilds have like a map macro weak aura that they're using in P1 as well. That's just like really sick for managing a mechanic that Blizzard tried really hard to make not possible to do that way.
It is quite the backfire on that. I think definitely you gotta fight that. Obviously, there would have been weak auras to just tell you where to go, and and Blizzard's like, no, private aura, and then you just end up coming up with something that's even more complex, but still can do the same thing, and it's
way more complex too. Like it is crazy with the weak auras that have come out of this boss.
I mean, it is definitely not great. I mean.
This boss, we actually didn't have a private aura, weak aura at all going into this boss. We had one for yourself to know that you had volcanic heart, but we didn't have this list thing, which is one of the benefits of watching Echo stream. We just saw that it was, and we're like, holy shit, that's a great idea. Let's go. I'm pretty sure if we would have just pulled that, like we did one pull off stream. Actually, we didn't even do it. We just went to bed. The analyst did one pull off stream. we would have probably struggled with volcanic hearts for like 2 hours, an hour. It'd be like, okay, this is just not even possible. Like, what are we gonna do? It just would have been a big waste of time. But instead, we got to wake up, just had this God Week aura, and got to go about our day. But yeah, it is not good the way that this backfired for sure, because it's just more cumbersome. And yeah, I don't know. I was a melee on this fight. Melee's job were much easier. Like, the only people that this fight was probably hard for was the people that, like, the what I would call like the third or fourth range that could regularly get 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. For those players, the fight was probably pretty hard.
I was
Shadow
out, by the way.
Breeze.
Yeah,
I was smack dab in the middle of that list. Any number.
for people for either 1 or 5 players, like, the fight was pretty. You just always go to the same spot, and it was fine even without a private order list.
So definitely not Go ahead, Tettles.
I was gonna say that fight is just so weird because like they made it to where you could perfectly stack 5 people in 2 zones, but like I think in reality they want you to break open multiple zones. Like
you
they
can't
want
even
you to
do that though. Like on the last one, the whole room is on fire of P1. In the first of P2, you haven't gotten any wall breaks yet. Like, there's no way. It's not possible.
Yeah, on top of the fact that the dot just gets extended from the tank thing, because
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I mean, if honestly, if like maybe that wasn't a thing, like you probably could like for some of them break like an extra wall, or maybe you're just supposed to heal an insane dot the entire time.
HPS is so low on that fight naturally though.
I don't know.
But it like on the people who are in danger with if they have 4 stacks of wall break and a volcanic heart on them, and there's 5 people like that, like those people are in giga danger for those moments.
Dude, you guys killed this boss like really late into the night, right? Like you guys were pushing super late to get Neltharion killed off even. Didn't you guys? It was like 12:30 Pacific or some shit.
I don't know how late it was, but I mean it definitely was a didn't pull.
It wasn't outside of our normal raid hours, but it was towards the end of the night. Yeah.
Well, because I know we definitely like we killed it and then we didn't pull Sarkarth at all. We
did one pull. Remember we didn't do any mechanics. We got to the glittering surge and then everyone just died because they didn't clear their stacks. I'm like 98% sure that we did that.
Max was saying you guys had like 2 healers clear and everybody else didn't, and then you got to get like 3 minutes of timers or something.
Yeah, I remember going through all of P1, not doing any mechanics, and then everyone died to the glittering surge. And
maybe we did that once.
It wasn't anything relevant, clearly.
It was late enough at night that your memory had turned off and you weren't recording new memories anymore. Yeah. That was, I mean, still only 74 pulls as well for a second to last boss, right? Like historically, that is still low for a world first kill of a second to last boss as well.
Especially for figuring out a weak aura boss like that. Like that boss is just straight up a weak aura boss.
Yeah, I mean, Volcanic Heart is just that fight. Like it is not a cozy mechanic at all. You have a lot of things, especially like in the middle, like you can 7 seconds to react to like where you are and go to a specific spot. It is definitely a full, you need to know exactly where you're going almost instantly, and then just not fuck up. And weak auras, like that's what they sometimes just have to do. Is like without that, I don't know how you would do this boss. Like you would just actually have to do some weird, like hard, like maybe you have 5 people. The 5 people just like call out a number, and you just went there manually.
Yeah, I think you pre-spread in like a loose circle, and then you go to the position closest to the one, like you get Volcanic Heart, and whoever's closest to 5 runs to 5 with Volcanic Heart, something like that. And you're like always pre-spreading in the same circle.
we definitely kind of had something sort of like that, where we had like sides, like you probably like some people would prio this and that, like for the list, like if you're at the top list, you kind of prio like 1-2 side, but like between the like those two, like you just kind of spread and went to the nearest side. But eventually we did end up like hard assigning every spot based on where you were in the list.
Do you guys think this annoyed Blizzard? What you guys did with weak auras on this fight?
I think so.
I'm sure
I mean, what they did annoyed us, so it's only fair.
I have no idea how they expected us to do this without a weak aura. Like
Yeah.
it would have been way harder than doing like jailer bombs without a weak aura. Or like I'm just not a big fan of this mechanic in general, where you get this thing, you have to spread to an exact location. Like and when they give you such short amount of time, or the radius of the circle is so big, like I don't even know if it's feasible. Like we probably could have killed it without weak auras. It probably would have taken like 400 pulls though. Like every player would have need to get every single volcanic heart spot so that they knew it like the back of their hand. And then, like, and then for like any guild that wasn't us, Echo, maybe Method, how would you kill this without a weak aura? Like it would actually be like, I don't know. I'm not a fan of that kind of mechanic in general. Same with jailer bombs or anything like that.
bombs.
Halandra's bombs.
Okay, Halandra's bombs a little different.
Yeah.
Like they had the in-game icon above your head with the the circle
clock.
on the bomb.
You think you could have killed? You think you could have killed Halandra without at 8-second duration without the weak aura?
The weak aura helped,
The weak
but
aura
it
helped,
didn't play the game for you, right? Like you
That's true.
you have to play the
absolutely.
game, whereas this time you have 5 fixed locations and you have to go to your exact location.
Yeah.
And there's not.
I think
like-
that players
Yeah.
generally would rather YOLO mechanics, anyways. Like I think that's like
Yeah.
the Blizzard default game is just so bad at telegraphing shit sometimes too.
The thing I would say about this boss, for being a second to last boss, especially like for me, since I started in Sepulcher, I'm used to the kind of like you need to play perfect to kill a hard boss, like the Halandris, the Rygalon, that sort of thing. This boss, I mean, we had quite a few people die and it was completely fine. I feel like, but it's hard, because it's like beggars can't be choosers. Like you can't want a raid that doesn't need any nerfs, but also wish that this boss had exactly 4.7% more health or something. So, I mean, yeah, I think it probably had a little bit too low a health, but like at the same time, it was fine.
I was surprised you guys
good.
lost it in P1.
I'd say, yeah. The fact that we killed that boss, not lasting the last phase, I mean, it was close, but definitely the boss probably could have definitely used way more health.
Yeah, I think the general sentiment was that for us, P1, like anything that had to do with volcanic hearts was going to be harder than anything that had to do with the portals in the last phase, because we had that Giga map weak aura. And so therefore, like if we could just reduce the amount of time that we had to deal with volcanic heart, like if we just got to the last phase with everyone alive, it would be easy kill. So I think that's why we ended up doing that. I know Echo was lusting P3. Yeah, even on our kill, right? We still killed it with people dead in P3 anyways, so with our lust.
I do think ideally these kind of bosses, especially on first kills, aren't doable with like people dead and a suboptimal lust and everything. But I agree, like it's better to be a little bit too easy than a little bit too hard, probably, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, if they have to like 5% nerf it, it's probably fine, right? It's like if they have to 50% nerf it. Ugh.
Yeah.
Somebody in chat said, like, imagine getting the boss to 9% damage reduction in P2 during Prague. I feel like that is like almost indicative of like, okay, there was probably something wrong with the HP.
Yeah, that was weird.
That is such a weird thing.
I think all of us hit that wall at some or like that moment at some point.
All right.
It's like 35% on the boss or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the last boss, Scale Commander Sarkarath. So this one ended up going a little bit over 100 pulls with very consistent progress. Obviously, you see these peaks, and that's because P1 is like so lethal, right? P1 it's a very lethal P1, a lot of deaths there, but still like the bottom here, a lot of good pulls and then into a kill. How did you guys feel about Scale Commander Sarkarath just overall?
Absolutely, yeah. I absolutely love that boss. It was, as I say, it was a short boss, but it was like it was just a lot of action, at least in phase 1. Phase 1 for sure was like constant lethal damage, like a lot of movement, and obviously the whole fight that damage matters, since it's not one of those phase percent bosses. It's like all time based, so it was definitely one of the best feelings for a phase 1 in a while, because most phase 1s And like speaking like Devastation Evoker, and like it's one of its flaws is like, oh, if only the last phase is like the phase that really matters, the spec is like, it might not be that great. But all damage you do to the boss throughout the entire fight matters. And so the fact that like phase 1 was like both that action packed, a lot of damage, one of the best phase 1s for sure.
Yeah.
Phase 2 I think was a little less action packed for sure, but it still, again, the whole damage mattering thing was a good thing. And I mean the ads did I think that I don't think they gave us much trouble at all, but I know like Echo was having a lot of troubles, so much so that they were like, they for a long time were lusting like certain ad waves in that phase. I don't think we ever switched off of like a phase 1 lust. We pretty much like maybe like very early we like lusted like couple pulls and then back to phase 1 lust the entire rest of progression on that. But overall that fight, like again, the short boss felt really fun the whole way through. Last phase was also sick with just our movement, our strategy, just everything just felt great the whole time.
Your movement, your strats actually looked fucking sick on that boss. Like sometimes you guys, I don't know why, but you'll do like a weird strat with your movement, and it'll have people questioning it. I remember there was like some weird jailer shit where you guys were like gating across the room, and everybody else is like, "What are they doing?"
Even Sire, like the Sire movement is so different than the Echo one, and I think people would say like a lot less elegant. Although I used the limit one that tier, and it was it definitely worked. But it's like just this time around, you could see how it was like a beautiful way of moving through P3, especially for the world first kill, where often like usually like FSY comes by 2 weeks later and like optimizes the movement to something really good or something, right? But yeah,
I think this time
perfect.
We had a lot different approach to our strategy than we have in previous raids, at least since I've been here. I think in Jailer tier and last tier, Max generally comes up with like the overarching strategy, but the raiders wouldn't really contribute that much in terms of changing the strategy if we thought something wasn't quite right. I felt like this time it was a lot more of a collaborative process. Max definitely came up with the overarching P3 plan, like this idea of like you're going to get 1 stack per mechanic that occurs up to 5, and then we're all going to soak a moat to go down at the same time. That was definitely his idea. But the actual like nuances of like how we move around, that changed a ton throughout our P3 progress. Like at the start, we were actually going to single dispel the double infinite duress and get knocked in like a zigzag, and then that was just like terrible. What? And then so we saw this clip of Jinji. He in P2 they gated the single dispel and the infinite duress like for damage uptime, and so I thought, well, let's just mass it like, and then we'll all gate it. And then there was like, oh, it's too much damage, we might die. And then so we tried to bring the infinite duress downstairs, and like, but when it goes off downstairs, everyone still gets knocked upstairs, and so that didn't work. And so then we're like, all right, like let's just send the master spell, and boom, first try, like it worked for everyone, got the gate, it was fine. And then we're like, for the next part of phase 3, we had this like weird movement, and Sevi was like, no, we should not be moving like this. Like we need to be moving like we should change it, and it should look like this. And that was great. And then we had some ads running around, and people were like, contributing like, oh, well, if we put in Ursul's like right here, it would be like perfect movement, and they would just get instantly cleaved. And so I think this tier, there's definitely like a lot more individual like player contribution as we progress the last boss to make sure that like the in-game movement and strategy like felt right for like the players like as they were playing.
What did you guys think about going dark night before the kill? I mean, obviously some people thought that was contentious. It seemed like at least amongst most of the people who were viewing the race, it's like, it's just part of the race. What do you guys as players think? Did you think it was the right decision?
Oh, it's for sure the right decision. 100%. Yeah. I mean, like there's a legitimate chance like if we didn't turn streams off and we showed them how to do P3, like we just would have woke up and the boss was going to be dead. And like even from when we turned our stream off, like the amount of like we were playing extremely well that night. So almost every poll there was like a huge gain in knowledge, and like the amount of stuff that they would have had to skip because they would have known that didn't work if we would have kept streaming, like there's like a high chance we would have lost if we streamed. So it was definitely the right call.
That was very smart.
It's always the thing, right? Like you guys are streaming from ahead for most of the race by virtue of starting first, right? And then at some point, right, like it's on the end boss, and it's like, okay, if we know we're not going to kill it tonight and we're going to go to bed, right? Like they are going to be playing for 8 hours while we're asleep with all that they know and all that we know. But on the other hand, like if they had known to go dark and like not show the Echo of Neltharion list week or not show the Gingy Mastispell clip, right? Like those would have also been time saves and time losses for you guys. So it's tough. I kind of wish there was. I wish it was possible to have a world where you guys just couldn't watch each other's streams at all and were like sequestered. But obviously that's just not possible.
Yeah,
but that would be the best possible case.
Yeah, I definitely do wish that could be the case somehow, because it definitely is like when one guild sees something, and then suddenly, like especially with like the different times that we play, it's like you really like you do something sick, and you maybe find something out. And like for like Sarkarith, right? We we had an idea that could work, and like knowing how much damage you could do to that boss with like when everyone goes down, because like it's guaranteed you have to go down once in the last phase, and you come up all hasted and nuke the boss for a lot of health, and it's like you see that and you're like, okay, this boss is like very much killable, and if we were to like do a strat, which would for sure like everything works out, which I think we found out, and like 100%, then we just go to bed after showing that, and it's like, okay, there's like a almost a guaranteed chance we could wake up and the boss is just dead.
Yeah,
because it's just been figured out. Like the moment you like figure out how to kill a boss, that's like, especially the end boss, because we definitely had that moment off stream where like it was very clear this is exactly how the boss dies. We woke up that off stream, like we woke up, turned our streams on, and we're like, okay, nothing Echo does at this point matters now. This is like the only time, because we know how to kill a boss exactly. No strat that they do or anything has any impact on that, pretty much, because it was solved, and that's why we woke up so like confident and whatnot. But it's definitely like, yeah, just the constant leapfrogging is just a thing that happens because go to bed ahead, wake up behind. You got all that information.
It makes the race hype. It really makes the race hype.
yeah, it is. It's just, again, like it just the different raid times is always that's just what's gonna happen. That's just how it is.
All right. I think maybe now is a good time to go and get to some questions, perhaps. I don't know, Tettles, this last little bit here, any of this stuff you want to...
I think we covered...
I think we got a lot of this.
I guess the question is, like, what is next for you guys? I guess it's like... I suspect we're going to start PTR testing soon-ish. They normally ramp up PTR testing soon. Any, like, major changes going in the next tier, really, that you guys are already looking at? Or not really?
Mainly just augmentation, I guess. There's some big class changes, but like there's always big class changes usually. Mm-hmm. The mage redesign thing's kind of interesting, I guess, but I feel like the big shakeup is going to be, it's like basically a new type of class, right? It's like support or like bard or it's not a tank, a DPS, or a healer, So
yeah.
That'll make things definitely pretty interesting, and you want to be prepared for next race. But other than that, I think we'll probably just do the same PTR prep that we always do, pretty much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right.
I think the rest is for Q&A. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
We have some great Q&A questions. Normally, we would also have a tip of the week segment that we would do, but we are skipping that this week. Also, normally, we would thank all of our lovely supporters over on the Patreon who get to change their names and stuff every week as well and get read out. But Diablo 4 is out, and as some of you have changed your names to represent as well, Diablo 4 is out. We love you all very much, but we're going to get to the questions, and then I'm going to play Diablo 4. So, We'll read all the
Let's be
Patreon
honest.
next week. Don't worry.
Holy
Let's
shit, that was a good one.
do some questions. We have one from Alan Diamond that says, "What is your take on heroic and mythic dropping in the same week? Did you like the 3 days of splits and 3 days of Prague, or would you want it to be longer or shorter? Do you think the race is better or worse because of the pressure to stream it all? Thanks for an awesome race to world first, and congrats."
I would say the heroic and mythic coming out the same time. I would almost prefer it to be like maybe like heroic raid came out and need like 3 weeks, like 3 weeks before the mythic raid to come out, and that's I think a very hot take because I definitely don't think the 99% of other people out there would like that at all. I think that most people just enjoy just all the raids difficulties being out for the most part. Maybe not like, but ideally it'd be much more a cool thing to just mythic raid comes out, the guilds just race into mythic right away. No need to get gear or anything. You have the gear, you just go in and you start just tackling hard bosses, and that personally would be like more exciting than, you know, raid comes out, but what are the top guilds doing? They're doing normal Sarkareth times 75, and it's just a lot less exciting at the start when the raid comes out for probably people watching. But I guess it's probably just having all that content available for people is maybe more exciting than gating the bosses or gating the difficulties. My personal opinion on that.
JPC, how about you?
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that the simultaneous release, it's good for the game as a whole. I think for the most players, they would prefer that. But for the race, I definitely don't like it. Not just in the fact that like you want to be doing mythic and you're stuck doing heroic, but I don't like that how efficient you are in heroic splits actually has a meaningful impact on how you do in the race. Like in my mind, the race should be about how well you play in mythic and how efficient you are, but there is like a real part of it that like if you lose 10 hours doing splits because your splits are inefficient, that's not good, you know? And there's like the amount of prep we do for splits and analyst work and everything is actually insane. Like if you guys saw some of these spreadsheets, like it's ridiculous. And I don't like that has like a meaningful impact on the race, but I think that's probably the way it's going to stay, and it is what it is, I guess.
I never thought about it like that. That's like you know, you need your high energy moments to be in the right moments for the race kind of thing. And like in the past, you guys have been able to save all that energy for Mythic Week, but now you got to do that twice as long, basically. Maybe not like point for point because the race is kind of short in this regard, but like let's say the race went on several weeks, like it did in Sepulcher, and you also had to also play super well during the heroic splits. Like that's a ton of time to play like that.
Yeah, it's weird. I think the helper part of it as well, and the splits in general, are like a barrier to entry into the race to world first that doesn't need to exist. People make like dumb arguments about how that's the only reason that their guild's not competitive with Liquid or Echo or Method, which obviously is not true.
I think people stopped making those arguments. I actually think that people have like really stopped making those arguments since the Race to World First has been streamed. I think that was like a really shitty argument back in the YouTube era.
But still, like the fact that like both guilds are using like 600 total characters worth of lockouts of helper splits or something of like to get all the extra gear. I don't know. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I wish that wasn't a part of the race.
Yeah, the other thing too is like with the simultaneous release, you're almost required to have more characters because you're at a way higher likelihood that you don't get the drops that you want in the one lockout or that you have. So like for me, actually for this tier, I didn't have a single good rogue out of 8 rogues, not a single one, until the very last boss that we killed, which was Heroic Sarkareth, which dropped Heroic Beacon and Heroic Dagger, which is the only reason I was able to play. And so from that standpoint, it would also be good that if there was still a heroic week. But like I said, I get why it's better for the game as a whole to have the simultaneous release.
Okay, I have a question. And it's actually a two-part question. 1, would you like the Race World First to be on a tournament realm? 2, do you think it would actually be good for the game or bad for the game? I guess these are 2 very separate questions. Like personally, would you like it? Secondly, do you think it would actually be good for the game?
I think from just the pure event sake, I would say it being a tournament realm would just be better. I would say,
Okay.
like it no harm done to everyone else that plays the game their own way, right? And maybe they could even tune it slightly differently, like than what it actually is on live. Like maybe even a harder version on the tournament realm, just to like have that actual entertainment value. So that way, it's oh, it's a too easy of a raid for the Race to World First guilds, but for everyone else, it's either fine or too hard, and then you have to tune, like, I don't know. You can get a lot more
professional chefs.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the race being strictly on tournament realm is definitely can't really harm the main game unless you're, I don't know, maybe like someone might have the opinion that maybe people like in the Race to World First, like that actually participate, like might be more attached to like their actual in-game character progress. But I think for an event's sake, it's, I don't know, it definitely seems good.
All right,
I
our
think-
next. Oh, go ahead.
I think for the event, it probably would be better to be on the tournament realm, but I actually don't know if it would be better for the game as a whole to be on the tournament realm. Because I hear, like, whenever I think that like we're doing this isolated thing that doesn't really matter, I hear these stories of like people that like they're like so hyped they got to like participate in splits, or they like saw us logged in at like AFK at an inn or something, or like it just feels like more of a community thing, which is like what the race is about. So, but I feel like it would be better for the race if it was on TR. But like, I also see how it's kind of cool that everyone gets involved in it, kind of when it's on live servers. So,
because I mean, obviously, there's a problem with like resets and shit like that, where I don't know. There's always going to be controversy surrounding that shit.
Yeah, it definitely is bringing that up. It definitely is kind of a cool community thing. I would imagine that, especially like people that see you on your character in town, and you're that guy, and they're listen. I used to be. It is crazy. It's like I've come a long way. I used to be that that person to be like, oh, I know that guy in the top guild. Yeah, I mean, you see people like in top guilds like that do cool things on your server, and you're like, oh, hey, like there's
They're
that cool
AFK
guy
in their tier gear. And
I mean, it goes back
wow.
to I have like the same story too with like just getting the legendary this time around. I was like, before when I started playing in Cataclysm, and seeing that for the first time, like at least on my server, like the person like seeing the Dragon Wrath thing in Stormwind, because I was Alliance at then, like it was like cool, and you inspect the person, they got all the sick gear, and it was I got inspired thinking about all that stuff when I got the Evoker legendary, and it was just kind of like, oh, it's like the flip side now. It's like I'm that guy.
It's like seeing LeBron James at the airport, man. You're like, oh, I know who that is.
He flies commercial?
All right. Our next question comes from Liquid Goop, who says, "Why did Sanghelios steal my legendary? You care to respond to these allegations, Sang?"
There's no allegations, man. It's just it had my name on it when it dropped.
Okay, but it dropped it for his character.
Wait, it dropped for Goop's character?
You haven't heard the story?
I missed the lore on the story. Hold on, I need to hear the lore on the story.
Okay, you guys want to know? All right, here's what all happened. All right, so we killed the boss. And so all the items, like we have RC loot counts on, so they all went to the Scott's character, right? All the items just went straight to his character, because that's just what the add-on does. Makes everyone else pass and everything. So it was an item you can roll on. But while everyone else was like up in their chairs, like obviously I'm at home, so I was like just like kind of at my computer, like celebrating myself in space. But I saw the legendary. Like I just opened a trade window with the Scott, just sat it there, and apparently I don't exactly know, because I obviously wasn't there, but it was either someone else or maybe it was Scott, just just open trade with it, and no questions had or anything, just boom, traded it to me, and it was mine. And there it is.
That's funny. I had no idea about that.
Yep.
All right, our next question is for JPC. I think it comes from Lepan that says, what's going to happen to teams that show up to TGP without a rogue?
Oh, they're going to get absolutely rinsed. There's not going to be any question about it. Yep. I saw there's a good screenshot, by the way. Splat, who is on Lepan's team, was playing some rogue, and he had a Easter egg pop up. He had a strength weapon on the whole time they were doing keys, so that was good.
Oh,
I saw that
no.
tweet. That was
Yeah.
so funny.
Wait. How was his dam? Was it awful?
I assume it probably was. I didn't. I didn't.
Do you
see
remember
that.
whatever you played? What was the boss that you played without an off? It was a Broodkeeper?
It was Sarkareth or Razagath for. It was like 2 pulls, 1 pull, I think.
Holy
Yeah.
shit. You were still like topping dam without a fucking offhand.
I think it put me down to like 370 item level or something. I was with no offhand.
That is awesome.
All right. Our last question comes from Twitch chat, comes from Mateo Druid that says, do you guys think the guilds that are usually filling the later spots in the Hall of Fame will struggle to kill the bosses without the Hall of Fame nerfs, since they'll have similar eye level to World First guilds? Now, we don't know for sure if there aren't going to be Hall of Fame nerfs. I think there probably still will be, but if they don't, do you think that's going to cause later guilds to struggle?
I think the way this system, like this gearing system, kind of works, it definitely, you can see. I think it will be, just because, let's say, you get a lot of initial gear pretty fast that, you know, it'll be decently powerful. But as soon as you hit a wall for like your guild, you really don't have much options to get more powerful, because you're just, you know, I said, that gear ceiling, like, it's just a little harder. At that point, you're only able to get like maybe slightly more gear from re-clears, maybe like 1 item level, 2 item levels. It's like, so I definitely could see that initially, like, there probably will be a more difficult time for guilds that are used to, you know, getting huge gear upgrades and then just being able to, you know, topple over walls that may appear. And then I don't know, it's like, because again, like, most people are like already like 442 item level plus, like within like the second week of the raid, just, and you know, they're already getting to Neltharion and stuff. But like, if that was like your wall, then you're not gonna, like, what, you can get like maybe 2 more itemals, and is that enough to kill it?
This might be a hot take, but I think if you can kill Rashok, you can probably kill through the raid.
Yeah, I was actually inclined to say that it might be hard for them, but now I'm looking at Raider.io right now, and there are 42 guilds that have killed all the bosses, and there it says there's 69 guilds that are currently at 8 out of 9 mythic. So that means there's already well over 100 guilds that are either done with Sarkareth or on Sarkareth, and if they're already there, I feel like they're gonna, you know, it might take them 2 weeks to lockouts, but I feel like they'll get it done just fine, as they did in previous tiers. Because I feel like in previous tiers, you went from what would have been an impossible boss for a lot of Hall of Fame guilds to something that was hard but doable. Whereas now you just have a hard but doable boss the whole time. And it's not like people aren't still getting upgrades, you know, like I think a socket's worth like 800 DPS or something. And and just there's like a lot of 447 pieces that don't drop from raid that you still get, and so I feel like they'll do just fine.
Catalyst soon-ish.
Yep, Catalyst big too.
Eventually.
Someday.
All right, well, thank you both very much for coming on our show this week. Sanghelios, any shout outs you want to make, or any socials or Twitch stream or anything you want to, like, did your name just Sanghelios, for instance, on those places? Or
Sanghelios, wow, right?
Oh yeah, my Twitch is Sanghelios. Wow, that is my Twitch. I sometimes stream.
Cool.
I'm not a regular streamer, but you know, sometimes I pop up.
Not a regular streamer.
Yeah, you know,
You're big time now, buddy.
This guy's been popping off lately. He's being so humble.
I'll turn it on if I have some content to just kind of chill with, but so, I don't know. Usually as it goes on, I'm like, nah, not really doing anything, so I'm just not going to stream.
And JPC,
But,
how about you?
I've had a lot of content.
Yep. JPC the man on Twitter, JPC the man _ on Twitch. You'll find me streaming once every so often. Whenever I hit the go live button, and yeah, might see me in some LFG keys every now and then. I've been plugging a lot of keys, man. Anytime or an OS, yeah, you see me in OSRS, say hi. I'm trying to get the Grandmaster helmet. I need some tips. I think I got Ivan's Blast right now.
All right. Well, on that note, thanks very much for coming on our show. Great to have you here. And congratulations again on the world first. We will see everybody next week. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.